Hello, I'm Patty Simpson with Simpson Math. Let's multiply and divide fractions. So when we multiply fractions, we simply multiply straight across. The numerator times the numerator and the denominator times the denominator. So for instance, here we have 1/2 times 2/5. We are just going to multiply the 1 times the 2 and the 2 times the 5. So we're just going to multiply straight across. Now, we can multiply that straight across and then reduce so that we have on top 2 over 10. Notice that there's a 2 on top and a 2 on bottom. A factor goes into both of those. So if I divide the top by 2 and I divide the bottom by 2, I end up with 1/5. What I like to do when I'm multiplying fractions is instead of waiting till the end to reduce, I like to reduce along the way to make it a little easier on myself. Notice that factor of 2 that was in 2 and 10, I can see that factor here. There's a factor of 2 on top and a factor of 2 on bottom. If I go ahead and simplify that here, I also end up with 1/5. So when we multiply fractions, we simply multiply straight across. But if we can reduce or simplify first, it might make things easier for ourselves in the long run. Here's another example. Let's do 2/3 times 9/16. And again, literally what we're going to do is just multiply straight across so that I have 2 times 9 over 3 times 16. And I could just simply do that multiplication so that I have 18 over 48. And then I could reduce that fraction. Well, there's a multiple of, or a factor of 6 that goes into 18 and 6 goes into 48. So I could divide the top and the bottom by 6 to get 3, and 6 goes in there 8 times. Or what I could do is I could recognize earlier that when I have that 2 times 9 over 3 times 16, I could recognize at that point that a 3 is in the bottom and is in the top. Notice that 3 goes into 9 3 times. And notice that 2 is a factor on top and 2 is a factor on bottom. So I could reduce that here so that 2 goes into 2 1 time and 2 goes into 16 8 times. Then when I multiply straight across, I still end up with that 3/8. So either way, I end up with 3/8. Here's one last example of that. In it, I'm just going to simply do my simplification or reduction first. These numbers are large. Trying to multiply those out might be tough. So instead, if I can make it simpler on myself to begin with, I think I'd like to do that. So for instance, I see that 7 goes into 14 and 7 goes into 35. So I'm going to divide the top and the bottom by 7. 7 goes in here 2 times, and 7 goes into 35 5 times. I also notice that 3 goes into 9 and 3 goes into 15. So I'm going to go ahead and simplify by 3 on top and bottom as well. So 3 goes in there 3 times, and 3 goes in here 5 times. There isn't a factor of 2 on the bottom. There's not another factor of 3, so I know I've simplified that down. Now I'm just going to simply multiply across. So 2 times 3 gives me 6, and 5 times 5 gives me 25. So 14/15 times 9/35 is equal to 6/25. Now, when we divide fractions, we're going to just multiply it by the reciprocal. In other words, we're going to keep this first fraction the way it is. We're going to change our sign from division to multiplication, and we're going to flip him That's what the reciprocal is. It takes this and it flips it. So we're gonna multiply by that reciprocal. We're gonna keep, change, flip. It's almost KFC, but not quite. So I'm gonna do exactly that. I'm gonna keep my first one. I'm gonna change my sign from division to multiplication, and then I'm gonna flip the second one. Now we're just back to multiplication, right back to where we were before, where we're just gonna multiply straight across. Top times top, bottom times bottom. And if we can simplify to begin with, let's go ahead and do that. So for instance, here, I see a 4 divided by 2, which equals 2. So on top, I end up with 2, and on bottom, I end up with 3. So 1/2 divided by 3/4 gives me 2/3. I'm gonna do the same thing here. I'm gonna keep my first one, 75/88. I'm gonna change my sign from division to multiplication, and then I'm gonna flip my second one. So I have 44/25. Now I'm just gonna multiply straight across. But if I can find something to simplify, I'm gonna do that first. So for instance, 25 goes into 75 3 times, and 44 goes into 88 2 times. So when I multiply straight across, I end up with 3/2. So 75/88 divided by 25/44 is equal to 3/2. So multiplication, multiply straight across. Division of fractions, you keep the first one, change your sign to multiplication, and flip it, or multiply by the reciprocal. Math Made Simple is Simpson Math. Thanks for watching.